Do I need to read the governor's mandate or anything?
Yeah.
That were, okay. This is a meeting of the Urban Forestry Committee, Thursday, February 17th, 2022. And pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, this meeting will be held remotely and is keeping with all of the open meeting laws. So first thing we'd like to do is introductions and housekeeping. So if we could go around with alphabetically by first name and see who's here. Is that you, Connor?
I think Althea is first.
Yep. Althea and then Amy. We go by first name. So.
Oh, Amy. Or Althea. Is Althea here?
She's here. Maybe she's having some communication problems. You look unmuted, Althea, but we can't hear you if you're talking. Maybe we'll come back around. Move on to Amy.
Sure. Hi, I'm Amy Myrtle. I am a member of the committee, and my background is in insect community ecology, especially in urban areas. And I've been on the committee for a few years. And yes, that's it. Just rambling. So thank you.
Connor?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Connor Guidarelli. I'm a horticulturalist at the Arnold Arboretum. Been a Somerville resident for a long time now, and always happy to be able to sit on this committee as a member and try and contribute how I can to help Somerville become a greener, better place. Thank you.
Jennifer?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Jennifer Clifford, resident of Somerville, urban forestry committee member, plant pathologist background, and I'm interested in plants in general and health of plants, and particularly interested in the green space of Somerville and how we can improve and maintain and work with the community to reach our goals for that. Thank you.
Malik?
Hello, Malik Drayton. I'm the urban forestry and landscape planner, and I've been working with the city for almost 3 years now. I have a background in urban forestry and natural resource conservation.
How you doing, Murph? A resident young person?
I can see you're unmuting, Murphy, but we can't hear you.
Okay, you look muted. Okay, Murph, we're going to continue, but just interrupt when you are able to speak because we want to hear your voice. I am Tori Antonino. I'm one of the co-chairs of the Urban Forestry Committee, along with Chris Dwan, who is not here today. I'm an ecological landscaper, and I like to put in a lot of native plants to support our insects and pollinators, and use ecological landscaping practices like leaving the leaves and not cutting back anything actually in the wintertime, and just putting a large diversity of native plants in and to regenerate our ecosystem. And so that's the committee. And oh no, Vanessa. Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Vanessa.
I hide as the public space and urban forestry person. I'm Vanessa Bukili, Senior Urban Forestry and landscape planner for the city. I've been here for over 5 years now and have a background in plant ecology. I also want to pass it off to Breck Miller, our new tree warden, who is now officially part of the committee.
Yeah, hey everybody. My name is Breck Miller. I can only see the people who I think are the organizers. So I think there are more of you than I actually see, but nice to be here with you all. I am coming most recently from the New York City Parks Department. I was working for the tree preservation program there and also worked with the street tree planting program for a while. But I'm a Massachusetts native from a little bit further west and really happy to be back in the area and looking forward to working with you all.
Welcome, Breck. Great to have you here.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we'll go on to our housekeeping and conflict of interest training. It's you, Vanessa.
Yep, I sent you all the conflict of interest training information. So if you have not yet sent that to me, please do. I think I gave you guys a deadline of next Friday. It's just reading over the document I sent and signing the last page. I feel like I had one other thing, but I don't remember at the moment.
Is this the one where you have the training and it's online and it's like an hour long? Is that?
That's every other year, and this year is just it's just like a 5 or 8 page document that goes over some of the basics.
Vanessa, is this also like an update to the special employee status or whatnot for the city that you were working for the UFC committee members to be getting?
I think this is for all committees regardless of the special municipal employee status, but I don't remember doing this before, so it's possible that it's stipulation of that. All city staff have to do it as well, so Breck and Malik, you probably have already done it.
Got it. Cool, thanks.
Okay, are there any other housekeeping items? Jennifer?
I'm not sure if this was a housekeeping thing, but I was curious about a couple of months ago, we talked about the ARPA funds, and I was wondering if anything came of that. I didn't know if this would be a place to ask about that, or it could wait for resident concerns perhaps, but were we able to apply or do anything with that, with those funds or for those funds? Do you remember that, Vanessa?
I do remember bringing it up in this meeting. If I remember correctly, we were going to have a subcommittee to sort of look into that I believe Chris was going to spearhead, and I think I signed up to be on it, but I haven't heard anything more.
Yeah, okay. I was just curious about that. I was thinking about that this morning. So I don't know what the deadline was or any of the details about that.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay,
So
thanks.
there is an ARPA committee or consultants, and different community groups have been, meeting with them. So I definitely want us to get in on that. And luckily, they said that they're going to be finding synergies in their decisions for funding, rather than like everyone trying to like grasp their own projects. So some money is reserved for the city to spend at its own discretion, and then there's a part that is, I believe, that is for the community. I think we're getting 75 million. No, is that right? I don't know if that's right. Someone check that. But yeah, okay. So I'll ping Chris and try to get that going because we do want to meet. So thanks for bringing that up, Jennifer. So at this time, are there any other any other housekeeping items? So at this time, in the effort for transparency and having good community practices when we're online, I'd like to promote everyone who is in the audience to be a panelist so that they can interact with us and so that we can see who's here and they can see who's here. I see 3 attendees.
Sure, I'll go ahead and make them panelists.
Okay. And that will bring us into resident concerns, and hopefully one of our persons in attendance will have something they want to share.
Real quickly, Tori, I think Murphy's back if you want to see if she wants to introduce herself.
Okay, Murphy.
Hi, I think I finally got it working again.
Oh, good.
I'm Murphy. I'm on the Youth Urban Forestry Committee. I'm a resident of Somerville, and I just really look forward to getting more kids involved.
Thank you, Murphy, for that. And I don't know if we can integrate somehow the mayor's youth program this summer. If we can weave you into that, because it's about, removing invasive plants. One of her summer programs is going to be removing invasive plants and putting in native. So
yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah. Okay. Let's work on that.
I have a couple more classmates that might actually be interested in that.
Really?
Yeah. They're not from
Okay.
around here, but I'm sure they'd be happy to commute.
Well, that would be, again, the more of you, the better. You want everyone identifying and pulling out Japanese knotweed. So cool.
We're also going to be putting up a bunch of tags on newly planted trees, Murphy. So we're going to need you and your friends' help to put tags up on trees, and I'm happy to show you how to do a plant tree sighting assessment so you can be in the know.
Okay, great.
Okay, great.
Okay, thank you, Murph. So back to resident concerns. Are there any residents who would like to talk with us and voice concerns or have observations?
I have one from Crystal who is in a loud area, so I will offer to bring up her concern. She is wondering if the Urban Forestry Committee is consulting on the 90 Washington Street process, and if so, if the public can get an update on recommendations that happened at the meeting last night. Sorry, I'm reading and trying to transcribe at the same time. So I think it sounds like Crystal was at the meeting, but was a little bit confused about some of the terminology. And so I don't know if any of you guys were at the meeting. I did go to the meeting. I missed the beginning, but can speak to that a little bit. But I don't want to steal the floor if anyone else was there and wants to take a first stab.
Well, I was thinking first, is our memo online yet?
It should be. Yeah.
Okay.
It's up there. I saw it.
Well, I'm going to try to put that in the chat.
Sure.
Or
yeah.
Someone can try to find that and put that in the chat. And Amy, would you like to speak to what's in the letter since you were the main author?
Sure. Yeah, I was not able to go to the meeting last night either. I had to teach a night class and I just got back too late. But so last month we approved just a memo on the 90 Washington Street project, recommending, our memo focused mainly on the trees as the Urban Forestry Committee. So we asked that the 90 Washington Street Committee reconsider the design to preserve the mature pine trees there, and cited, the value of those trees, not only as in terms of a carbon sink, which was one of the things that they mentioned about the trees, but also the value of them in terms of the air quality improvements that they add in an area that has really high pollution, and just general quality of life improvements for people who live at Cobble Hill or live in the area, and being one of the few large green spaces in that area that has trees like that you really can't find elsewhere in East Somerville. So that was kind of the gist of the memo, is just asking them to reconsider that and see if there's a way to kind of center and preserve the trees as a green space within the design. And since I wasn't at the meeting, I don't know if any updates have been made, or if that was mentioned at all.
So, yeah, go
for it, Tori.
Okay, yeah. So I was at the meeting last night and I was thoroughly confused, Crystal. And I need to write to Melissa and a new guy, Ted, who's part of the project. There was a presentation by the architects, and they set out 5 or 6 different designs that we gave input on, but the input was like, it was a survey, like strongly agree, strongly disagree. So, and one of the designs was it's called a tree preservation design, and then people voted on the designs, and I truly, I am so perplexed. All I have is questions now, and maybe that's good because we can sort of figure out more where this is going. But the Urban Forestry Committee's stance is asking to preserve as many trees as possible, but we have not weighed in on a specific design that says, okay, we want the tree preservation design, because there's so many things to consider. I mean, I'm not ready to just to say we want this design if it's going to mean we don't have as much affordable housing, or we lose out on having a commercial space for a grocery store. So anyway, I was confused. I'm curious to know your thoughts if you can be in a quieter space. But Vanessa, what were your observations?
I guess just like a little bit stepping back, we were presented the original design a few months ago from the 90 Washington Street project. The Urban Forestry Committee is an advisory body, so we don't really make decisions, but we're a place, usually Chris is here to say this, but we're a place for open discussions, but not for making decisions. And then we did all approve the memo that Amy wrote about the project. So we're involved, to some extent. We can't drive the project one way or another. I was at the meeting as well and found it, I was also semi-distracted during the meeting, so I wasn't sure if it was just me, but I was a little bit confused too. And I felt like they didn't have like a preserving green space category for meeting goals. Like the site has a lot of goals that they're trying to accomplish, and that didn't seem to be one of them. So so I found that the polling questions, for the things that our committee is focused on, there wasn't like an appropriate response for that. Like the tree preservation design was probably best for the existing trees, but that didn't meet any of all the other goals of the project. So I felt like it was lacking in terms of what we could reply to. And it was a little also disappointing that no one liked anything. I think one thing to keep in mind with that is that it wasn't a not like a snapshot of the actual community's thought process, because the people who went to the meeting are probably the ones who are they were maybe not as excited about the original plan, and so they're maybe not happy with the project as a whole. So that's something to keep in mind. But anyways, I was also a little bit confused, and it sounded like there would be future community meetings, so maybe we'll get some more information. And there's also the Summer Voice page for the project. Maybe that has more description and details in there. I haven't looked at it yet.
Yeah, please go to that if you can. Honestly, I was like, any feedback you have for the city is gonna be good. Like I wanted to take different parts of each design and like put them together. I think that feedback will be helpful. So
Crystal
okay.
did have one other quick question, if it's appropriate to continue with her questions.
Yeah, let's do it.
She was just wondering if we have an opinion on red cardinal flowers. She's heard they're native pollinator friendly. I am not familiar with those. Does anyone else have any input?
Lobelia cardinalis, a favorite of hummingbirds. Crystal, if you're interested, Prairie Moon just put out their catalog, and they might have bare-rooted plants there. I'm hoping at some point we can organize a native plant sale with groundwork, with green and open, with growing center. And I've been looking into developer funds for that. Just like give us money so we can do it. I don't know. We should talk though. And that's a great question. Connor, did you have any other thoughts on cardinal flower?
I don't really know what her question is. I think it's a great native plant. She's trying to grow it. I think you want to make sure that you have an area that has moist soil, so for your establishment, and then once it's established, it can maybe handle drier conditions. But yeah, really good pollinator plant.
Okay, anybody else?
Yeah, I have.
Oh yeah, hi, please.
Hello. My name is Jonathan Estwing. Matt, I think I don't know if it's Malik or Malik, suggested I come to this, and I've been interacting with the city regarding some trees. So I'm a homeowner and full-time resident of Somerville, and there's some trees that are in a neighbor's adjacent property that are there's about 7 or 8 of them that are like I guess they call it tree of heaven, which is the invasive kind of tree that I guess causes a lot of problems. The more I read about it, the more I become concerned with it. And then there's also an oak tree back there as well as some other undersized stuff. So there's kind of 2 questions I had. One was related to the invasive ones. I know those are exempt and all that from the ordinance and are bad news. I actually had one that died and fell on my fence, and then there was an insurance claim and a whole rigmarole around that. But it doesn't seem that there's anything that compels that property owner to remove those. So I mean, outside of me, taking the person to court or something like that. And that area is very tight, and these trees are like inches from, literally, I'm not exaggerating, like, this close to people's houses and stuff like that. So I'm wondering, is there any, the first part of my question is there anything to compel a homeowner to address the risk of that and remove those?
Well, thanks for coming to the committee, Jonathan. Appreciate you being here, and look forward to everybody asking more questions and try and give some advice here. Could you just expand a little bit more on, like, beyond so you're saying 8 tree of heaven, about one oak tree, and then a couple just understory brush and whatnot. And what's really your concern? Are you concerned that with the messiness, obviously one of the trees have fallen onto your property and done property damage? And what else is the concern here?
Yeah, there's well, several. One, I mean, the more I read about it, the pollen, the apparently they're, I'm not a tree expert, but apparently they're pretty fragile and die, and so there's already been one that fell, and that was one of the smaller ones. If that big one falls, it's going to come right into my house. There is a messiness factor. I mean, they just drop all kinds of stuff all year round. But it's mostly the concern about like safety and of life and property and all that. Yeah, because sure, I mean, I have insurance, but I'd rather not go through that whole process of a tree coming into my house.
Totally agree. Actually, there was a storm just last winter that there's some tree of heaven on a cliff below my property, and it fell down and came all the way and broke the fence on the rental. But so I hear how they definitely are fragile. Well, I would say that, certainly depending on what your relationship is with your neighbor and trying to build a rapport and expressing to him or her that your concerns with that property concerns. There's also an invasive pest that has been detected here, spotted lanternfly. I don't know if you've read about it or not, but
Yeah.
its host tree is tree of heaven, and one of the big concerns about, or one of the big nuisances of spotted lanternfly is that they cause a complete mess of a property. So if your property owner is not inclined to wanting to have spotted lanternfly in the future all over their house and causing honeydew and other issues, there's incentive to remove the invasive trees from the property. As for the oak or any other native tree species and whatnot, I think at least I'd be inclined to try to preserve that and save whatever native species are there, and hopefully get a tree service to prune it accordingly. But if
So
anybody else,
as it relates to the invasive ones, though, there's nothing to compel them to do it. It's up to them basically, unless you take them to court or something. Is that right?
not to my knowledge, is there anything that one like there's no authority that the UFC has other than to just try to educate about the impacts of that invasive plant and also the potential fall and break hazards that tree could cause to their property or to adjacent properties such as yours. I don't know if the tree preservation ordinance has any sort of, and is there anything in there, Vanessa, for trying to muscle people to get rid of invasives?
No, the city can't make someone remove a tree. There's nothing in the ordinance about that. It really is a private property owner to private property owner. Hopefully not dispute, but if it comes to a dispute, but the city can't get involved with that sort of thing. I do know for this property, the property owner did receive an exemption from the permit process to remove those invasive tree of heaven. So I guess the ball's in that owner's court.
Yeah, that's right. They did, and I think it hasn't quite gotten to the point yet where she's decided to actually fork over the dollars to do that. I mean, and I'm sure she may ask me to fund part of it and stuff like that. So that's why I wanted to see what the rules were. And then regarding the oak, there's a large oak there. I understand that's not exempt, obviously not invasive and all that. I think there's kind of a something in the ordinance that's kind of overlooked, like a catch-22 type situation where my understanding is that you can apply for a permit and have a tree removed on your property as a permanent resident. And if that's approved, you can do that without having to pay into like the tree fund. However, if it's a absentee landlord or whatever, which this is the case for this person, then they have to pay into that. And given this, the size of this tree and that sort of thing, I think it was estimated like $5 to $10 or maybe even more $1,000 just for the tree fund cost, not the removal cost, which is obviously significant. So the catch-22, I think, is that it's not my tree, but I am a permanent resident, homeowner, etc., who's at risk, because if that tree were to fall, it's going to fall, it could fall into my house. And I would be exempt if it were on my property, but apparently she's not. So, not only would she have to fork over, I think we got a quote, it was going to be $12,000, and that's for the tree of heaven and the oak. But then she'd have to come up with another, 10 or 12,000 for the tree fund, and so I'm wondering, is that? It seems like a lot to ask of her, given that she would already have to come up with a significant amount of money for the removal to begin with.
That's a good point. Does
I
anyone
mean,
have
does she want to remove all these trees?
I'm sorry?
Would she just, does she want to remove the trees? I mean, hopefully she wants to remove the trees of heaven, but maybe she could remove the trees of heaven and not the oak, and it could be more economical.
Yeah, if it were up to her, I think she wouldn't do anything. I've been, she doesn't want to spend the money, and I've been trying to urge her about this for 14, 15 months now. And then actually what happened was I told her this is going to fall on my property, etc. She didn't do anything. 6 months later, the one tree of heaven did die and fall on my property, caused a bunch of damage and stuff like that. Apparently, the way the law works, if I hadn't have addressed this with her before, I would have had to deal with that, the damage and stuff like that. But because I had addressed it with her, then it was a liability claim with her insurance. So her insurance ended up paying for the damage. And then she had to pay to remove that tree that was on my fence. But she really has no interest in spending a bunch of money to remove any trees. So my thing is that it's the economies of scale of it is where I come in, because my understanding is to have the tree company come in and remove all the tree of heavens, right, is like a fixed, say that's $8,000. And then if they do the oak at the same time, that's maybe another 1,000 or so, right? As opposed to them having to come back at a future date if there's a problem with the oak and have it removed, then you're talking another $8,000, $9,000. So as a property owner that's already had one tree fall, I'm ready to just eliminate the risk to my home and my family and everything else altogether, and deal with it economically all at once, but as opposed to having them come back again in the future.
Totally understand. I have a couple more questions for you, Jonathan. How many other properties abut this property that you're talking about?
At least, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, possibly 4. At least 3.
Okay. And have you also been in discussion with those additional neighbors that are abutting this other property in question?
No, unfortunately, those are also rental type situations, like and it's transient people. It's mostly students, and it's not people that like live there. Like the people on my street for the most part are permanent residents, and I know them well. But these other, I've never met any of the owners. I have no idea who they are, and I would assume they would feel the same way, that they're in this as a business, and they would rather not spend any money, let alone the money for the tree fund.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tricky situation. I guess some final thoughts from me, and then I'll stop hogging the discussion with you from everybody else. But I think you're doing the right thing with being proactive and documenting your conversations with this homeowner to therefore put the liability back onto them in case something does happen. So at the very least, you're covered there. Second, I think if you were to at least reach out to or figure out who the property owners of the other adjacent sites and begin a conversation with them, because fortunately and unfortunately, trees are a community service where they provide shade and other ecosystem benefits to not just where their roots are, but where their shade and canopy casts. So there have been other people that have come to the committee that have discussed how they've rallied neighbors to try and all pitch in and provide funds for, you know, these higher costs for removals of the trees. So at the very least, you could get rid of the tree of heaven. I think sometimes the stance with the UFC is that we're also trying to preserve canopy of tree species that are ideal, and oaks are a really, really good tree species for pollinator and bird populations, and they also provide some really great ecosystem benefits. So I would also suggest too, where there's the possibility of thinking about, okay, well, is there a way that rather than paying for the upfront cost of a tree removal, you could pay instead, which would be less, for someone to come in and prune the tree effectively, and then they could be on a 5-year cycle or whatnot for coming through and pruning and maintaining that oak, which I understand can be threatening to your house and your property and those damages there, but there's also the possibility of some of the other benefits that that tree may be providing into your neighborhood, which not knowing everything about your property and how it looks, just wanted to say that to you. And of course, you know, you take what's best for you and whatnot. So.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
I would just like to add a couple of things. Connor did a great job of kind of covering all of the aspects of that. But Jonathan, I'm really happy that you're here because these are, you know, serious questions that we, you know, the hazard part in particular. My question is, do you have any idea how large these tree of heaven are? Because
Yeah.
Are they larger than 8 inches? And my understanding, and Vanessa and Malik, please correct me if I'm wrong, because I've been trying to go through the TPO here while we're discussing. And if they're smaller, are they exempt from paying into the tree fund? And as an invasive species, is there exemption
sorry
there?
to interrupt. Those are all fine. Those are because those are exempt. It's only the oak that would require.
Oh, okay. Sorry,
payment.
I misunderstood then. I thought there was some confusion there so I'm the one confused, obviously. So I apologize for that. Okay.
That's okay.
And yeah, so then I guess I really want to stress what Connor said about the oak, that it's really critical to keep these canopies for a healthy ecosystem, and that pruning it, getting somebody in to prune rather than cut would be the way to go. And sorry for the confusion.
Another thing to add, Jonathan, is that, oh, sorry. These videos, go ahead, you go, pardon me.
I was just going to say the other thing that I had taken issue with is the section, I think it's section 8 in the ordinance, it has a statement in there that, you know, and the city doesn't interpret it this way, as I'm sure the people from the city can speak to. But as it's written, it says that a homeowner can remove that stuff if it were to fall. You know, I think it says if it were to could cause damage if it were to fall. Basically leaving the discretion to the homeowner. And so my thing was like, well, it's the radius of the thing based on the height of the tree. If it were to fall in my direction, would fall into my home. And so therefore, it seemed like the permit process shouldn't even. So I just wanted to add that as well.
That's That's a good point, and that's sort of what I was going to mention as well. Is that I don't know if you could either get that other landlord or possibly you to hire like an independent tree arborist from a qualified, reputable company to come and do a site assessment. And if they're a certified arborist and they have tree risk assessment qualifications, they could assess the health of that oak tree and look for and basically see like, is it structurally stable? Is there any sort of root rot? Is there any sort of included bark? Anything that could possibly be putting it towards an even greater risk towards your home, or is it actually a healthy tree that happens to be
It's
leaning
healthy.
in the
It's
direction?
healthy.
Yeah. So, yeah, but that's getting either. I don't know if a certified arborist has gotten eyes on it yet or
Yeah.
whatnot. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Well,
Yeah.
you've done good steps. So.
So
Oh,
what
thank
I'm
you. Sorry, I
thinking
didn't
right
mean.
now, I'm not being a good chairperson, but what I'm thinking right now is that, Jonathan, have you contacted a city councilor? Because
Yes,
I would be willing to meet with you and the city councilor, to provide support and to continue this conversation offline. And perhaps any members of this board, if they wanted to join, just to better understand the situation, I would be willing to do that. But I do want to move on with the agenda. And I want to say that this is very interesting because this is a real life example of, like, okay, how does the tree preservation ordinance work? Where are we struggling with it? So I'm gonna put my email in the chat, and I think I'd recommend maybe who worked on the ordinance? Did Lance Davis work on that?
I believe so.
But he doesn't get back to people. Who's your ward counselor?
JT Scott, and I did go to his office hours about this and spoke with him about it. He said he was going to look into it. I have not heard back from him, but I welcome your conversation with him about it.
Well, when you reach out to him again, CC me. Not that I have any power, but I would like to continue. I will continue this conversation with you, but I do want to move on with the agenda. But I wanted to thank you for bringing that, and I put my email in the chat.
Sure. And you're the chair of this committee?
I'm a co-chair, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for coming. There was one more community concern, and that was wondering if we are still going to have to check to do an older tree survey, a significant tree survey. There was a plan set in place last year after the Prospect Hill tree loss to be sure we are proactively doing health checks. And this is Mandy DeBarro, and she just wanted to double check on that. And I don't remember if that happened or if that is something that we were planning on. And if we don't have an answer right now, that's. Could you? Great, thanks. Hi, Althea.
Hi. There was discussion about that last year, and there was a group that was working on that. However, that group has temporarily taken a break because of other obligations of all of its members. So that is a project that was picked up by a collaboration between the Urban Forestry Committee and ROOT, which is what is, I always forget what the acronym is, respecting our oldest trees, or I think respecting is what the R stands for. And we started a program to let people nominate trees that they thought were significant for reasons that they thought they were significant, not just the oldest trees, but also interesting trees, also trees that were living in strange places. Maybe they had a strange form, or maybe they were historically interesting in a certain way. However, that project has taken a pause because everyone in that committee is a little overextended. So it is on the radar, and there is a group that's interested in doing that, but there is not any motion on that right now. So I would call that a dormant project.
Okay, I will let her know. And is the signage that we had, was that part of this older tree? The big banner?
Exactly, the banner that is in winter storage, and Jennifer's going to be putting that back up in the spring for us. She's handling that. So that is one part of the project that will continue in the spring when it gets to be warmer weather. The banner will go back out and is making its rounds in our public parks. And the banner does have a place where you can take a photo of a QR code and submit a significant tree to the nomination form if you so desire. So that is still a possibility. It's just that we're not actively working on it beyond having the banner and having the banner rotate in the spring.
Okay, perfect. I will let Mandy know.
I have a question about that, Tori. At the risk of my tired brain making another mistake, was part of the question though about health of these older trees?
Let's see.
In addition to, like, because of the Prospect Park elm that had to come down, because Mandy was really involved in that, and you know, for monitoring for like the health status and that sort of thing, because that's something maybe when you know, as Althea was saying with the root collaboration, when that comes back on, maybe that's something we could add to that is monitoring the health of these trees in addition, if that's what Mandy's thinking, and maybe she'd like to help be involved with that. So if you get back to her, she can be in touch with us about that, or vice versa.
Okay, should I CC you, Jennifer, or?
Sure.
Who's the head of that committee? Okay. Yeah, she did. She was, you know, what's the process for checking in on tree health?
Because that would be a great way to roll in that collaboration, roll that aspect of it into that root collaboration that Althea initiated. Yeah, great, thank you.
Okay, moving on. I would love, Amy, your caterpillar count project presentation. Is that something we could?
Yeah, we're ready for that.
I can do the slides.
Yeah, I sent it to Vanessa just because I had trouble sharing last time.
All right, are you seeing my slides now? Or not mine, but the slides on my computer? Okay.
Yes, I can see them. You said you could take notes for this part.
Oh, me?
Or just
I probably did say that, but I can't share and take notes. Can someone else take notes?
I could add in some notes later too. I know it's in the presentation.
Sorry about that.
I'll take notes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I just put together a little presentation on the caterpillar count project that we've done as part of the Adopt a Tree program for the last 2 years. And it was good because it was good motivation for me to actually kind of dig into all the data we've collected and, you know, think about before we do it again another year, like, you know, what are we getting, what's working, what's not working. So it was a good kind of doing this presentation was a good motivation to make me do that. So that was useful. And also hopefully interesting. So you can show the next slide. So the goal here was, well, I mean, a little background. So I've been working with citizen scientists at Auburn Cemetery to monitor insect herbivory and activity on trees there for the past 5 years using the caterpillar count program. So when the UFC started this Adopt a Tree program in 2020, it seemed like a cool opportunity to add a monitoring project to the city street trees. which are obviously trees that have a very different environment and a different experience than trees in a more protected urban green space like Mount Auburn Cemetery. So both in 2020 and in 2021, when people would sign up to adopt a young tree using our little, adopt a tree signs that Connor mentioned earlier, they would, after they signed up, we would send them out an email to see if they were interested in monitoring for insect activity on their adopted tree. With the idea being that, if they're going out and watering it anyway and spending some time with it, this would be one kind of a little added piece that it isn't super time consuming, but would add a little bit more work on their part, but also give us a little bit of data on what kind of arthropods might be using our trees. And then people who replied back and were interested, that I would send them information on, the protocol, some training materials, and then if they thought they could handle it and thought they could do it, then their tree would be assigned a code, which is a 3-letter code, which is what the Caterpillar Count Project uses, and then whatever additional training materials they need, and using the Caterpillar Count Project, which I'll talk a little bit about what the Caterpillar Count Project is in a second for those of you who are not familiar with that. I think that's on my next slide. So the Caterpillar Count Project, I know many people are familiar with it, but for anyone who's not, it is it's a national citizen science program that is organized by a group from the University of North Carolina, and they created a standardized method for monitoring the activity of caterpillars specifically, but also other arthropods on trees, as well as looking at the level of herbivory, trying to estimate how many arthropods are feeding off different trees. And this is just a screenshot of their website. They have a lot of great information on there. If you click on the next page, the next slide, I think it talks a little bit about the methodology. So participants are asked to survey their tree at least once a month between May and September. In 2020, we got started a little bit late, so we did it from June to September. So we didn't get May data the first year, but in 2021 we did. And during the survey, the participants are asked to pick 50 leaves on their tree, and they have to be leaves that are low down enough for them to see, which is one of the limitations, that we're only surveying kind of the bottom half of the tree where people can see the leaves. And then they're asked to, every time they survey, to look at that same group of leaves if possible. I mean, obviously we know sometimes branches break off, or especially in urban areas, sometimes the same branch isn't there the next time you come back. But if possible, they try to look at the same ones and carefully look at it for any arthropods and photograph them if they can. And then those photographs are uploaded to iNaturalist, so they go on that website as well. And in their survey, they also estimate the size of the leaves and the level of herbivory, which is somewhat subjective. They have to estimate, are the leaves about 10% eaten, are they about 50% eaten? So there's a little bit of subjectivity there, but they kind of make their best guess of how much of the leaves have been eaten. And then they can either enter the information in the Caterpillar Count app, which is a great function, or for people who didn't use smartphones or just prefer to do it a different way, then they could email it to me and then I can upload it on the Caterpillar Count app for them. So the next page, I think you can go to the next slide. So it's a really great program. It has an app for data entry, which is probably the best part about it, that it makes it really easy for people to use. You can download the app and it just goes step by step through all the things you add. The data is also, it's all open source. You can go to the website and you can download this data for any of their sites. So it's very easy to compare data between different sites, and it makes our data kind of something larger. It's not just looking at our local trees, but we're also fitting into this larger data set of all these sample sites across the country. They have all these wonderful free training materials. They have videos you can watch on the methods. They have ID guides, like this little arthropod guide that I stuck a picture on. So it's, I think it's a great program to use. There are some little limitations. The materials are only available in English. And I've looked into trying to get them translated on my own, but there is a lot of material, so it would be a little bit costly. So I haven't been able to do that yet. And it's something that they want to do, but haven't done yet. It relies on the citizen scientist ID skills if they can't get a photo, because, if you try to take a picture and it crawls or flies away too quickly, then a citizen scientist just has to kind of make their best guess as to what kind of group, what insect group it was. and I don't have, a good sense of how accurate people are with that. Herbivory scores, like I said, are also a little subjective because you're just sort of looking at, you could look at a leaf and one person would say, oh, that's 10% eaten, another person might say 20%. So again, it's some subjectivity there. And then, like I mentioned, we're only surveying the leaves that are low enough down to be visually seen. So we don't know what's happening up higher in the canopy. But given those limitations, it's still a really nice resource. Okay, next slide. Okay, so this is the rest of the slide is more about our specific site and what we found. So these are the levels of participation. So how many people were interested in doing this? So in 2020, we had 37 people say they were interested, and a total of 40 trees were given codes. Some people did more than one tree. In 2021, there were 21 people who were interested, and a total of 23 codes were given. 23 trees were given codes. 8 people from 2020 agreed to continue monitoring their trees in 2021, and then we had 13 new people sign up. So we didn't get quite as much interest in 2021 as in 2020, so that wasn't super surprising, given that a lot of people, when I contacted folks who did it in 2020, were like, oh well, now I'm traveling again, or things that they weren't doing in 2020. I'm going to be out of town, or I moved. So I think that's probably part of the reason that there's a little lower participation in 2021. Okay, go ahead. Thank you. The trees that were given codes, we had 21 different species, and people, this was just whoever decided to do it, and they were just working on trees that were near their home. So there wasn't any assigning, I didn't assign specific species. It was just, whoever said they were willing to do it, then whatever tree was near their home, then they were assigned that tree. So we ended up with 65% of them were non-native trees, 26% were native trees, and then 9 were trees that were unknown, just because the way they were listed on, I used our urban forestry's list of, what the trees species were to figure out the species. And in some cases, it was just like prunus species or something where I didn't know for sure it was native or non-native. So that's the unknown category. For native species, because I know we're all interested in those, these are the ones that we had: the chokecherry, American hornbeam, red maple. That was the most common one, red maple. I think 1 pin oak, 1 serviceberry, and a few American elm. So those are the ones that ended up being native, again, just by random chance who picked what. Go to the next slide. So this was really interesting. This is something I hadn't done before. Like, I knew that not everybody, did all their surveys, just because, people would email me and be like, I'm out of town, I can't do it, or whatever. But I hadn't really gone through and measured exactly how many people did how many surveys. So this was good information for me. I think I didn't quite realize how many people didn't do that many of their surveys. So this is in 2020 and 2021, how many trees were surveyed, how many times. So ideally, people would have done at least 4 surveys in 2020, June, July, August, September, and 5 in 2021, including May. But most people did not do that many. Most people did fewer. And actually, out of the 40 trees that were assigned in 2020, a fourth of them were never surveyed. So I guess those people just never did it. And in 2023, we had a third of the trees never actually got surveyed. So there's actually a pretty good chunk of people who signed up but didn't actually end up doing it. I'm sure for various good reasons, it was not their top priority, and other things took over. So it's a total of 127 surveys altogether when you add those up. Next slide. So a little bit of the results, and again, having incomplete data set makes the results a little bit skeptical, but but still, interesting to think about. So these are the results for the herbivory scores. What proportion of the leaves were estimated to have been eaten at different times of year. So you can see, like, from June 2020 through September 2020, the herbivory scores increased, which would make sense because, obviously over time you would be accumulating more herbivory, not less. The 2021 ones are a little bit weird because they kind of go up and then they go down again, which I think probably reflects, guys, of course, when I'm giving the presentation is when everybody decides to come up. Leander, honey, can I finish my presentation? So that's when, that could be a result of either, incomplete data, that people, a tree that had high herbivory in June just didn't get resurveyed in July and August, and that made the number go down, or it could be that subjectivity that somebody looked at a tree one month and it looked like 10%, and then they looked at it the next month and they actually said, oh no, that's actually 5. So, you know, I don't think it really means that the trees are getting eaten and then growing back and getting eaten again. That's probably more subjectivity. And I looked at just overall averages on native trees versus non-native trees. Not much difference there. You know, slightly higher percentage overall for the native trees, but I think again, probably given incomplete data set, it's hard to say if that is really meaningful or not. Overall, I mean, you know, one thing that is striking is just the overall low amount of herbivory, which I guess is not surprising for a city tree, you know, just compared to more some of the, I haven't done like a detailed comparison, but just like a very quick comparison with more, you know, natural sites, green spaces, you know, that the level of herbivory is definitely higher overall. So it's not super surprising, but, you know, again, does emphasize that in the city, there's not as many insects that are able to use the trees for whatever reason. Next slide. Arthropod activity. This is, you know, again, kind of a quick survey of what was found. So about 29% of the surveys found at least one arthropod, 71% found none. And that's actually not too unreasonable. That's similar to what we get at Mount Auburn as well. Overall breakdown, the most common arthropod was ants, specifically carpenter ants, which might be just because they're large and they're easy to spot, and you know, they're you know, maybe an easier insect to see than some of the smaller ones. Then how well you can see this graph, but the next highest group is spiders, then aphids, and then beetles. Caterpillars was pretty small, only about 5% of the surveys had caterpillars, so we didn't have a ton of caterpillar activity. We also had some flies, leafhoppers, true bugs, I think a couple bees or wasps, and a couple unidentified species. Okay, you can go to the next slide. And then breaking it down by month, that was kind of interesting to do, just to see when we had the most activity. Most activity overall was in June and July, which is not surprising. That's sort of when you would expect a lot of insect activity. One thing that was interesting is that the only caterpillars we found were seen in May. So we didn't see any of those in 2020, and then we saw a couple in May of 2021 when we surveyed in May, which does also make sense that those earlier months do tend to have more caterpillar activity. So that emphasizes the need to start earlier to get what things may be happening early on in May when the leaves first come out. So that there might be activity of caterpillars and other things that are not as common later in the season. And then you can see things kind of slow down August and September, not as much activity. Okay, next slide. So just kind of a summary of next steps and, you know, other things we could do with this. One, I think, you know, really emphasize the need to do more to increase participation for all 5 months, because having, you know, the same tree being measured every month makes a big difference. So what I have usually been doing is just sending out an email to everyone once a month, kind of reminding them to put their surveys up there, but probably I should put a little bit more time into that, you know, maybe an earlier email and then looking to see who hasn't done it, and then maybe following up specifically with those people rather than just kind of letting it go. So it's a little more work on my part, but I'll see if I can maybe do that this year. I was also thinking maybe some sort of a prize drawing, like for, you know, everyone who submits a survey each month gets entered in some sort of a drawing for a prize, like maybe some little native wildflowers or something you can plant in their lawn or in a pot. I don't know. I think of something like that, but maybe something simple like that would encourage more people to do it every month. It also, a few people got excited about it and sampled more than once a month, which is great. So maybe encouraging more people to do that, certainly, because looking at a tree just once a month, you're certainly not getting all the activity that's happening in that month. But given that, you know, most people aren't even doing it once a month, probably have to work on that first. And there's obviously, you know, once we get a more complete data set, there's also interesting things we could do with this data, comparing Somerville to all the other many sites out there. You know, so far we're only sampling the young trees. Since we're doing it with the adaptive tree programs, there may be different things happening in our older trees, you know, different insect communities, more activity. And also just, you know, curious if you all have other data or other ideas of, you know, what to do with this program, or what kind of things might be interesting to look at. I would be, you know, love to hear your ideas. I think I have one final slide, which is just thank you slide to you all and the Adopted Tree Committee for supporting this and helping out with this. Althea did a lot of work organizing emails and setting up separate links for people to sign up for this. The Caterpillar Count Project, of course, which has done a lot of troubleshooting for me, answered a lot of questions, things like that. And then, of course, everybody who participated and surveyed for insects, whether you did it every month or if you only did it once, or even if you didn't do it, no, there's no judgment. Certainly appreciate any kind of participation and interest. So that is the end of my presentation. Thank you all. I don't know if anyone has any comments.
Thank you, first of all, for all this work. I didn't realize that it was this in depth, and I just wanted to thank you for all your work.
Sure.
I'll wait. I'll let other people speak. Then I have thoughts.
Thank you so much, Amy. I just want to give her a round of applause.
Thank you.
I'm curious, how do you know if you're checking the same 50 leaves? Do you tag them or anything, or just hope you're in the right neighborhood?
Yeah, I mean, I've recommended that people could put a little tag on it, or kind of make a little marking, or we have, I send them all tree tags that have the code on their tree. And so I was sort of recommending people, they tie that tree tag like on the little chunk of branch that they're going to survey to remind themselves. I don't know how many people have done that, but that's one way.
I've definitely seen those.
Okay, good.
It's really cool. I'm really interested also to see the comparison with like the Mount Auburn Cemetery trees or other stuff.
Yeah, that would be, I haven't done that yet, but that would be the next step, is to do more comparisons. I do know that we get higher participation over there of people, but they have dedicated, citizen scientists who are out there every week, so that's easier.
Well, you could compare to what we see at the Growing Center too.
Right.
And I just love that you saw caterpillars. I mean, which we don't see at the Growing Center. So I was excited to see that. That's great.
I'm surprised.
And thank you for doing that. That was really good.
I thought you'd be more likely to see them at the Growing Center. You haven't found any there?
No.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I haven't compared it with the Earthwise Aware sites either. That would also be good to do.
At least not in the urban sites. Yeah. That was awesome, Amy.
Thank you.
I was wondering, to help with participation, like if it could be at a park once a month, and then like people together kind of go over and like, okay, like I was just thinking, Prospect Hill, like we're gonna look at the dogwoods, gonna look at the witch hazel, check out the fragrant sumac, and maybe doing something like that together at like once a month locations might help out. I come. I mean, but I know people have different schedules. That's just one suggestion to get people out there.
Yeah, I think that's more the model that Earthwise does at the Growing Center. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Jennifer, that you kind of have a regular day every month that things get surveyed. And that's like, kind of the other way to do it would be to have one specific location that we're surveying and have people come there rather than having everyone just survey the tree near their house. That would be like, a different kind of very valuable data too.
Yeah. And I think Caterpillars Count even has some sort of program where they're trying to get, actually, it might be for students, but that could potentially be something that could go in, fold into these youth programs. We sort of kicked off the meeting talking with Murphy about some of the youth programs. They may support, have money for something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And to get, and if that could be a possibility to get some youth involved, that we could maybe have a more regular count perhaps, and the more data that you get, we're going to start seeing some of these correlations between native trees and non-native trees, and how many insects we see and what we're seeing there, which would be really cool to know.
Yeah.
is this an app? Can I download the Caterpillar Count app
Yeah.
and
yeah,
like start my own, like join?
Yeah, you need each tree that you survey has to get a code, so you have to like enter the tree on the website and give it a code.
Okay,
But you can, yeah, you could add, if you want to add a tree, we could add it to our Somerville group.
okay, cool, thanks.
All right, well, thanks everyone for listening to my presentation. And we have a Adopt a Tree group meeting next week, I know, so we could also talk more about, in that group if we have ideas on different things to do with this or ways to make it better. So, thank you.
Well, thank you again, Amy. And okay, so we have about 45 minutes left. So we're gonna fly, and we'll start with updates from the city. City
All right.
tree removals. Go,
Yes.
Vanessa.
Thank you. We have 8 hazardous trees that are being removed as part of the Spring Hill sewer separation project. I sent you all the lists of those. A few have already been removed and the others are pending. We also have 10 dead or hazardous trees that will be removed at Nathan Tufts Park as part of our Parks Tree Health Program. Of course, when I start talking now, I have a fire engine behind me, but anyways, hopefully you can still hear me. So those removals will start next week, and the work there will be done mostly in the next few weeks, and then we're getting some funding to finish that park, so we'll come back a little bit later in the season. And then finally, we did have a tree hearing last week, I think it was, for the 10 ash trees that are in the Spring Hill Sewer Separation Project area. I know Tori and Connor were there. So just trying to be a little bit more proactive with getting ahead of the ash, basically deaths from emerald ash borer, and removing smaller trees that are in poor health. So we had that hearing. We did have 2 objections to the removals, so we're going to be preparing a staff report and get the mayor's opinion. So I'm not sure if those trees will actually be removed or not yet. I hope that most of them will, at least, if not all of them, but that is pending. I think that's all I have on city tree removals. Any questions? Cool. Well, I will move on. Oh, next up is Malik, private tree removal permits and exceptions.
Alrighty, so 2 exemptions are 21 Auburn Avenue and 57 Highland Road are actually being removed very shortly. The list will be updated for the year soon. I'll get to that. And then we have issued 2 permits for the year. I believe it was, if I could open my spreadsheet, it was 51 Church Street, and the other one is on Laurel. 1 second. And computer's freezing up. So yes, that's all I have for now. And let's see if this works. Nope. Yeah, that's all I have for now.
Malik, do you know the reasons for the exemptions?
Malik, if you're talking, we can't hear you. I imagine they were
Okay, Malik?
hazardous for some reason, maybe invasive.
Yeah, I was thinking property owner.
Oh, those aren't exemptions, they're waivers.
Oh, I see.
So the exemptions are
Okay.
either invasive species or dangerous trees.
Okay. All right, Malik, when you come back online, just interrupt. We'll move on to city tree planting.
Oh, I thought I was on mute the
Oh.
entire time. I wasted all that breath. Okay, so 21 Auburn is a 13-inch and 18-inch sycamore maple that's in precarious declining health and precarious structure. 40% of holding wood is decayed, according to our press report.
And the sycamore maple's invasive as well.
Yes.
That's on our.
Yep. And the other one is a dead 15-inch sour cherry behind 57 Highland Road.
Are we asking the owners to leave snags? I don't know if that
For
could be a
wildlife value?
for the owners to leave this, like.
I've actually spoken to a few homeowners that were interested in one or two were interested in snags, and the other one was just trying to figure out how far they could cut it because it was a part of their fence now. But yeah, usually the homeowner concern is that it will attract what they don't want to attract. So they're afraid of rat burrows and stuff like that. But they did understand that the snag would provide wildlife value. So they're usually mixed feelings as it pertains to snags.
Yeah, it can be both, but hopefully we get the possums and not the rats. Okay, thank you, Malik.
Anytime.
Any questions for Malik? Okay, moving on. City tree plantings, Vanessa.
Thank you. We are putting out our calendar year 2022 IFB tomorrow. I forget what IFB means, but we're basically asking for contractors to put in their bids for the tree planting work. It'll cover 350 trees, half in the spring, half in the fall. And I did add language in the technical specifications about our native planting ordinance and mentioned that we have a preference for native trees and street species whenever possible. That is in there. Invitation for bid is IFB, for those of you who want to know.
What is it again?
Invitation for bid. Thank you, Malik.
Okay, so we don't know. This is for the spring and the fall, or is it for next fall and next spring?
It's for this spring and fall.
Okay, all right. Well, hopefully we can get someone who can get those trees and get them in the ground, and we'll be off and running. Okay, any questions for Vanessa? Okay, ongoing work updates, adopt a tree.
I'm going to let Jennifer handle this one.
Okay. Okay, yeah, thanks. Thanks, Althea. And Althea, do I understand correctly that this is your last meeting with us? While I have you on the phone? Because I wanted to give you a huge thank you for everything that you've done and how great it's been to work with you on this project.
Same to you all. It's really just been an absolute pleasure, and you guys are really inspiring, and I've literally never worked on a team of more enthusiastic people for any project of any kind, and so that really makes it work. And so you all made it easy to even dream up a project like this, and I thank you all for that. And I'm really excited to see it moving and growing into new leadership and new roles. And I've spoken to everyone at this point, and I'm excited to see what you guys do with it. Thank you.
Thank you. And I hope that you stay in touch with us.
Of course. And, you know, my email has not changed, and I think you guys all have that. So feel free to reach
You'll
out.
probably be hearing from us a lot.
That's fine. Happy to correspond with you all.
So as Amy pointed out earlier, we will be meeting next week, the Adopt a Tree working group, to start planning the next steps for the program for this year. And Althea has shared her timelines and all the information that we need to continue this program. So we will be meeting next week. So we'll have more to report at the March meeting as to the progress. So, but February is the time, typically in the last couple of years, when we've started the organizational process, and we will be kicking that off. The working group consists of Amy and Connor and Leah and myself. So I'm looking forward to doing that program again this year. And Murphy, if you're interested, as Connor said, he'll show you how to use the tags, and you can get your friends. And because when we do put the tags out, we typically divide the city up by ward, and it's an awful lot of trees. So we could use the volunteers.
All right, awesome. I'll get a group together and let you know.
That's awesome. Thank you, Murphy, so much. Really appreciate that. And that's really all I have to report on Adopt a Tree for the time being. I have a
quick question. I am being reminded that Althea was going to put together a map and was waiting for me to give her the data with all the trees planted last year, and I did not do that.
Oh, that's right.
Did I send that to you still, Althea, or is someone else going to take over?
You could send it to me. I know technically that's on Amy's
yeah.
to-do list, but I have access to GIS now, which I didn't at the time that I was handing that off. So I'm happy to do that because I know there's a little bit of a learning curve there. So I'm happy to do that and provide it.
Okay, I'll send it to you, and I'll CC Amy so she sees it too.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you for the report, and thank you for Althea. I didn't know this was your last meeting, so we're gonna have to have a party at Arbor Day or something. Don't go far.
Yes, I won't.
Don't go far.
I won't.
Okay.
Yeah, don't go far.
Root collaboration.
I think Althea pretty much covered that earlier too. That is on hold now. We can probably take that off the agenda. We will revisit that probably in the spring. Carrie Kemperman and I will hang the banner in April up at Trum Field, and I think maybe we'll try to figure out how we can sort of reinvigorate this walking map, and maybe adding some of this health data now could potentially be an interesting aspect of it. Maybe we can get Mandy involved with that. So, but that is a project that's on hold right now.
Okay, thank you. Outreach.
Amy and I have initiated the Arbor Day poster contest for the 5th graders. The deadline for that is March 1st. We haven't received anything yet, but I did send a reminder email out just a few days ago. So we expect to get some submissions for that. Breck, and you may not know about this program, but the DCR sponsors a program for the Massachusetts 5th graders to submit posters in celebration of Arbor Day. And they have a theme each year, and this year's theme is be a cool community, plant trees. And then they make a calendar from the winning posters. And last year we had 3 posters that were featured on this calendar, on this year's calendar. So I think, Amy, it was the Mystic River Watershed has also launched a couple of their own programs this year that are going in parallel to this particular one, where students can write essays or create posters about the watershed. So I don't know how much that will cut into the activity we get from our own 5th graders, but hopefully we'll get some good submissions this year.
Okay, Jennifer, thanks for working on that. And Amy? Okay, planting, species selection and planting protocol. Connor, could you take this?
Yeah, sorry, I was just finishing the notes that I was taking. The SAP committee met and we went over the discussion for these trial pits that we're hoping to implement this spring. So we're looking to seek out some locations for it. We were looking at plant availability and price lists for both tree species as well as understory species to be planting as a green mulch within these pits. So on the, Tori, do you have the link? Let me see if I have it in a tab somewhere. I can throw, do you want me to throw it in the chat or no?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I can find it if you want to keep.
Yeah.
I think I have it, Connor, if you want.
Oh, awesome. Thanks, Vanessa. So we can, if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, all the way down, there's like 20 some pages, so you may need to. Yeah.
Sorry, the bottom of the whole thing.
Yeah, the bottom of the whole thing. Oh, that's like, it's kind of a continuation notes. Yeah, so, okay. Yeah, we're kind of there. So this is a good description of kind of the average costs that we're looking for being able to do 6 tree pits. And this is just a very conservative estimate here of what it would be costing us based off of the average size of a tree pit, which we're assuming is, I think it was like 2 by 8 for feet. Does that sound about right for your standard sidewalk?
Oh, you're asking me.
Yeah,
3 by 6 is our minimum.
okay.
For that, or the somehow getting to 18 square feet of open soil. I like to do bigger when we can.
Okay, 18 square feet or bigger. So yeah, we're hoping that if you scroll up just a little bit, I think we should be having, yeah, we'll stop there with the tree species. So these tree species that we're looking to use, we would select 6 of these. Some of them are familiar to our original planting list that we have. Some of them are also pushing the boundary and experiments to try and see if we can see what can grow in the city with a younger specimen. So you can see the size availability. These are small whips. Everything would be sourced from the Native Plant Trust. And then scrolling down, we have some other ground covers. These ground covers span throughout the season for when their flowering times are, so that there's available pollinators food throughout the season, and they're all plants that are adequate to being able to survive in a tended to street pit. Further down, we have the estimates. So the proposed supplies there's hyperlinks, and in those hyperlinks, it's just a combination of different materials that we would need to protect these tree pits, considering that we would be putting in very small, tender herbaceous plants, and then also the trees would not be your typical 2-inch caliper tree that are 6 feet or plus tall, and we would need to provide some sort of protection. So there's some bamboo stakes, we have some fencing that we would put up, and some other sort of tree guards to prevent rabbits from causing disturbances there. So that way we're making sure that these pits are protected. So that's another reason why we need to find locations where the sidewalk is preferably not the up to code standard sidewalks, that they are larger areas where people can pass through, but if not, you know, it still would be viable. So looking at the average cost of 6 trees, understory plants, the materials, and then obviously the time and implementation of it would cost some money. We're looking at a base of around $2,500 that I think, I don't know where the money's coming from, but I'm assuming it's the tree fund that we'd be able to pull on these resources. Other things that we would that aren't included in that estimate are materials such as mulch, compost, sand, and other shipping related costs, plus labor, which I'm assuming would be done by UFC committee members, or if there's a contract issued, then DPW, but with oversight of UFC committee members. So yeah, we're looking for feedback on plants. We're looking at feedback on viability of this cost. We're looking at any kind of concerns. We did not drop a schematic to show what the tree guard situation would look like, but if anyone has this link, they can click on those hyperlinks and kind of have an idea of where that is looking. So this is some mesh black, and everything's through vendors that I think the city is already connected with, so there's no additional paperwork that would need to be happening to try and streamline it. So this would be the tree guard. That would be around the actual tree itself and staked down, so that prevents people from mainly rabbits from coming and gnawing on this tender, smaller caliper, but also as a means to show people that it's there. The garden stakes, that's just to help secure the PVC rabbit guard, the tree guard fencing that we just saw previously. Bamboo stakes would be utilized as both you would be planted alongside the main stem of the tree. So to give some sort of highlight, we were going to be like, we could tie on some sort of like fluorescent tag so that people have eyes on it and make these trees more visible. We were also thinking about attaching signage to the last link there, Vanessa, which would be the actual fencing that would go around these places. So we think it's also aesthetically pleasing. We would be able to dig a trench just inside of the pit and then secure that fence down inside of it so that it stays upright. And then we would be able to affix any sort of signage to that sort of fencing so that people can understand what is going on in that tree pit, and they can direct any questions, excitement, complaints our way, and we can make everyone understanding and in the know of what we're trying to accomplish. Tori,
thanks for all this work. Oh yeah, I can let you finish.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead,
Um,
Vanessa.
Thank you. I'm sorry I haven't had time to look at this in a lot of detail yet, so I'm just what comes to the top of my mind. I'm used to dealing with calipers and not gallons. So do you have like a sense of how tall these trees are going to be?
So the in the parentheses there, that should tell you what the height is gonna be, but it's kind of funny how like the 3-gallon and the 7-gallon are close, they say 4 to 6 feet total, but I would assume that these calipers, and Tori, you probably know better than me, I'm assuming they'd be like a 1/2 inch caliper, if
Yeah,
that.
if that.
So I haven't
Okay.
dealt with Native Plant Trust, Tori has, so I don't know what their stock with regards to their trees. I've dealt with their plugs though. We get their plugs, and then we do specialty grows every once in a while with them for plugs. So their plugs are good stock, but I can't speak to their woody selection.
Okay. So the first thing I'm thinking of is trying to figure out where to put these. And if I remember from last meeting, the goal is really to see what could survive at this level and not trying to make a replicable format for every tree pit in the city. Is that still the case, or am I interpreting that correctly?
Well, it's to sort of see what works, like what ground cover works, what trees are going to work. And like if we needed to scale up, we can simplify ground cover palettes. But it's sort of like, yeah, we might want to scale up if we find that if this can be more economical, if we can keep it somewhat in-house with the DPW,
Yeah, but the first step is to see if it works, and then we can figure out how to scale up.
Yeah, sort of like, well, does it work at all? Hopefully.
Yeah. So my concerns are with the pedestrian pathways primarily. So having a fence like that around an entire tree well, I think the fence said it was 4 feet tall, so it'd probably be buried, 1/2 a foot or a foot, but it's still going to be sticking up. And I have to remind myself what ADA rules are, but there's a minimum of 3-foot walking path, but I think that's like for a very short distance, and it's supposed to be 4 ideally. So maybe, Connor, what you had said about a narrower tree well might be more appropriate. So there's, in our normally 6-foot sidewalks, there's at least 4 feet of clearance, but people tend to not look down when they're walking. So having like a 3-foot fence and a very short tree in there, like if they're just walking straight, they might not see it and trip over it, and then we have tripping hazards. So I definitely want to try to put these in like wider sidewalks or even tree lawn areas, which isn't necessarily the same situation that we have across the city, but might be a good starting place, and there's still some similar issues. So we're going to have to think really carefully about placement of these, and I do still need to just double check with our ADA coordinator and make sure that we're not going to be impeding anyone's pathway by doing this install. And this is really helpful information to have to go with her and ask directly.
That's good information to know too. Would anything like if we were to attach some sort of like fluorescent tape, some sort of neon tape there, or having the signage, which would be on some sort of like a neon cardstock similar to the Adopt a Tree program. I don't know if that changes things, similar to how like cones can be put onto a sidewalk to keep people from it, that if we just highlight this fence, then therefore it falls under the acceptable rules.
Yeah, that might help. Or even, yeah, I was thinking of something like those like snow flag pole thingies that they put on curbs, like something also maybe that's sticking up higher than the 4-foot fence.
Mm-hmm.
There might be some sort of coordination of visual impacts that can help highlight the existence of these things.
I don't remember how high the bamboo stakes are. I thought they were like 5 or 6 feet or something like that. Or
That
they're
might help.
3
I can't
feet.
see all of it.
Never
3
mind.
foot.
Sorry, I thought I
Yeah.
selected something that was taller. But we could look into getting like taller bamboo stakes and then therefore could put those in the corners of the fences or something like that.
That might help. I also just looking at these species, I might stay away from flowering dogwood in the sidewalks right now because it has such low branching habit. That's going to be, as it grows even, it's going to impede traffic, just thinking about it structurally. I don't know the form of striped maple enough, but the other ones should be good.
I would also add, with the striped maple and the flowering dogwood, they're probably not trees that you would want to have in full sunshine, so you'd have to be careful about your placement and your understory configurations with those, and possibly with the musclewood as well.
Good
Yeah,
point.
musclewood likes shade for sure.
So, I mean, yeah, that's a great point, and it would be nice to at least maybe find 2 or 3 locations that are more shady. But to make sure that not all the tree pits are just fully in sun. So
Yeah, so hopefully we can get a meeting with you, Vanessa and Breck, in the upcoming weeks to kind of, you know, make this happen. You know, and think about, if you could scroll up a little. I must have fallen asleep a little bit in the meeting. It's a picture of, keep going. It's a picture of a blueberry bush that we have at the growing center that we, well, we're seeing ground cover right now. You can keep going up. I did this a few months ago. Oh, right there. So I guess I was thinking the mesh that was around the trees was going to be taller than what was on the link. So I might have nodded off during the meeting, but this is kind of what I was thinking, like that height, because bunnies, you know, could be on their hind legs, and so maybe we need to revisit that, or the mesh is
I think the
fine.
mesh is 4 feet tall.
Okay, I think it just looked like really small.
Yeah, 4 feet by 50. So
Okay,
it totally
we're
does
okay
look
then.
like it's only 2 feet or a foot. But it should be
Okay.
yeah, tall.
I think when I looked at it, I'm like, oh, that looks like it's about a foot tall.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's, and you know, there's an example of like the bamboo is holding up there is just whatever type of fencing or chicken wire. So yeah.
Vanessa, would you going forward, are you going to make an appointment with the ADA liaison and talk to them first, and then we'll shoot to have a meeting with you and Breck? And I can send out a doodle poll. Should I do that let me look at the calendar. Like first or second week of March?
Yeah, let's shoot for the first week. If we
Okay.
can all meet then, that would be, I think, the sooner we can get some decisions. There's still a lot of work to be done after we like have a plan, a firm plan. So that, so the sooner the better.
Okay, first week of.
I don't know if it's possible, but if you guys can squeeze it in during like a work day time, that
What
works
time
that's
usually
easier
works?
for us. Till 5.
Okay.
Well, Breck works till 4, I think, but He's 8 to 4 and I'm 9 to 5.
Okay.
If not, that's okay too, but see what we can do.
Yeah, I have some wiggle room with like my lunch hour. So I could do something around 1 o'clock.
Yeah,
If
that's
that
usually
works
good.
for y'all. And Tori, how's that work for you?
Yep.
Okay,
Yes.
great. So I'll just put out a doodle later tonight for that first week, kind of hovering in that work hour range.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, is Breck, is your email included in the latest emails that we've been having? You've been attached there, so.
I've been getting them, yeah, they were
Everyone's
blind.
BCC'd though, so.
It's,
Okay.
Can you just type it in the chat, Breck?
what's that?
Can you type it in the chat? Sorry to speak over you.
That's easy.
That'd be easiest.
Thanks.
I have a quick question.
Jennifer.
Thanks so much. I'm excited about this program. Thanks for putting that together, and it's really fun to see it shaping up. I like that. And a question I have about funding it, Vanessa, is the tree fund should cover it, right? Because it's for planting things, but is this something that we could potentially submit as part of our budget again for next year? I mean, could this be something we request separately from tree fund so that we could continue to have tree fund for other things? Because right now we have mostly like outreach sorts of things that we'd put together for the budget last year.
I mean, I think kind of the $1,000 is already a lot more than lots of committees get, so I don't think it could be like a UFC fund.
Okay, okay, that's what I was wondering, if there would be a way we could get a line item for this kind of pilot study, and but it falls under the tree fund, so we don't have to get special requests to city council to spend.
We do. So all tree fund money have a request to spend tree fund money has to go through city council. So that's one of the steps once we know exactly how much we need. And we're getting much closer to that now, but it will be like a month to get the money to buy the stuff. Once we know exactly how much money we need. And that's at a minimum.
Yeah, I was just curious about that, if there would be another way we could get more money.
Could that be a request? Could Public Space and Urban Forestry have that as a line item for their tree pilot program?
Maybe. It's hard to get money that's more than we've requested in the past already. It has to be a program improvement request, and there's like lots of those and little of them actually get funded because we only have so much money in the general fund. Yes, this is small monies, but it's something I'd have to bring up with Louisa to see if it was an option.
While we're on the topic, when is the deadline for the budget? Do you know? Probably not till May, June, maybe?
Well, basically, if you can keep within $1,000, that's probably fine. You don't need to do.
Oh, it wouldn't need to resubmit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We have to get our stuff in order soon. I don't know what the exact date is, but soon. But I'll just make a request for $1,000 for UFC outreach sort of stuff, and then we'll just make sure we're spending it wisely.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Connor, and thanks, Tori.
You bet. Thanks.
Yeah, Leah was on this too, so. Okay, approval. Is any other questions? Any concerns, thoughts, comments? Okay, approval of the meeting minutes.
I think there's
first
one more agenda item, the tree preservation ordinance.
Oh, thanks. TPO.
Well, I think Chris was going to spearhead something on that, right? So maybe we could do that next, Connor.
I just had, sorry, just had a question. I had I don't know if I'm using the UFC group email appropriately or whatever, but I did send out like an article to people regarding, I just want to make sure people actually got it and whatnot. Did you see that?
Yeah, I read it
I don't
today,
expect
actually. It
to-
was really good.
I don't expect responses, but I was just like, I don't know if that went through, so hopefully everyone got it. Great.
So actually, a note on that, I did communicate with Chris a little bit a couple of weeks ago, and he did update the list, but I think Breck might need to be added still. So we'll need to make sure he knows that.
Okay.
But yeah, that was a good article, Connor.
Yeah. Beck, I can forward it on to you, so you can take a look at it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't have anything about the TPO either. Just wanted to make sure no one else did.
I mean, I think the gentleman who came by, I think there could be interesting, that I don't know if there'll be any results, but I think that that's going to be an interesting, just sort of like case study on the tree preservation ordinance and its challenges, limitations, and you know, whatever solutions we can find. Okay, so we have approval of the meeting minutes, and so first we have the November. I lost the agenda. Yeah, the November meeting minutes. Could somebody make a motion? How do we do this, Vanessa?
I guess, does anyone have any edits or anything? I want to apologize for sending them out later than I was hoping to. So if I may suggest, we could, if there's no amendments to either one, we could do one roll call vote to approve both minutes.
I would second that, but I agree with that. Do we have a motion? I don't think I can make the motion.
Okay,
So
I make a motion to approve the November 18th, 2021 and January 20th, 2022 meeting minutes.
Second.
okay. Roll
So
call.
then, yeah.
Is that it? Thanks, Vanessa. In order of alphabetical, Amy or Althea.
Approved.
Amy.
Approve.
Breck, are you part of the UFC? All right.
Yeah,
Breck.
but I wasn't at the meeting, so I'm not sure I get a vote in this.
Right.
You can
No
vote,
for
but you can also abstain if you want.
I trust Vanessa. I approve.
Connor.
Approve.
Jennifer.
Approve.
Malik.
No longer a voting member.
Ooh. Well, thanks for being here. Hey, Murph.
Approve.
Okay. Tori, I approve. And Vanessa.
Approve.
Awesome. Okay. I think all of us approved. If there is no other business before us, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Connor seconds.
Yeah.
And all in favor? Do we have to roll call adjournment?
I don't know, we never do,
I
so I'm
just-
hoping we don't.
No, I think we just hang up on each other.
Just
Kidding.
log that time. We're
Yeah.
done.
Okay.
Good to see everybody.
All right, everybody. Nice to see you, Brett. Good to have you on board.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you very much. Take care, everybody.
Have a great evening,
Yeah.
everyone. Take
Yeah.
care.
Good night, all.
Bye.
Hi,
Bye. Thank
Althea.
you,
Bye,
guys.
Althea.
Bye.
Bye.